Welcome to Threads of Grace podcast with Dr. Suleman Bhamjee, where stillness speaks, faith breathes, and every word is woven with purpose. A sanctuary for the soul. Come as you are and leave wrapped in grace. Let each thread remind you, you are held, you are seen, you are loved.
Ambition and the greatness of humility. Mark 10:35-45. From the works of Shakespeare, we would read these words: "By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes. Open locks, whoever knocks. Enter Macbeth." Ambition came to Shakespeare's Macbeth on a desolated heath, beneath a grumbling sky soiled with foul and foggy air. Not exactly where he expected to find it, but there it was, or actually, there were. 3 witches whose prophecy foretold who the King of Scotland would be. The next King of Scotland would be Macbeth. Those of you who have read the book would remember some of these words of the witch's recipe for reckless ambition. Double, double toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble, fillet of a fenny fish, in the cauldron boil and bake, eye of a newt and toe of a frog, wool of a bat and tongue of dog, adder's fork and blind worm's sting, lizard's leg and howlet's wing, for a charm of powerful trouble, like a hell broth boil and bubble. That charm of powerful trouble boils and bubbles a murderous desire in Macbeth's heart for Scotland's imperial crown. The alchemy of greed and deceit and vaulting ambition transform his life into a hell broth of sedition. He gains the crown, but forfeits his soul. Mark 8:36. The Lady Macbeth forfeits hers as well. A blood-guilty conspiracy drives her to madness and suicide. And in bitter repose, Macbeth denounces life and the vanity of ambition. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Fair is foul, and foul is fear. The witch's wail in the opening scene of that Shakespearean tragedy. And there is no better definition of the twisted ethics behind ruthless ambition. It does not share the golden rule with the rest of us. It has no sympathy or other praiseworthy feelings. It only concerns itself with results, achievement, power. Nothing else matters. But does that mean that we should not be motivated to do a job well? Or to dream dreams and have aspirations? No. The scriptures are replete with exhortations to be steadfast and immovable in our pursuit of excellence. The goal of excellence, however, subtly becomes a lust for accomplishment if driven by the sin of pride. According to Webster's dictionary, ambition is an ardent drive for rank, fame, power, a strong desire for advancement, It's all about me, me, me. That's the dark side. Everything is centered on self, how it affects me and how I will benefit. What does Solomon have to say about this? He paints several stark portraits of how ambition really works. Portraits that are strikingly different from the world's glossy depiction. So let's look at some of these. Before destruction of the heart of man is haughty, but humility goes before honor. Proverbs 18:12. A man's pride will bring him low, but a humble spirit will obtain honor. 29:23. Do not wear yourself to gain wealth. Cease from your consideration of it. When you set your eyes on it, it is gone. For wealth certainly makes itself wings like an eagle that flies towards the heavens. 23:4-5. It is not good to eat too much honey, nor is it glory to search out one's own glory. 25:27. Over in the New Testament, we have another portrait of this charm of powerful trouble. Mark 10, the drama unfolds. By the pricking of my thumb, something wicked this way comes. Open knocks, who open doors? Whoever knocks, enter the ambitious sons of Zebedee. The backdrop to this scene we're about to witness is important for us to understand and picture. Jesus is on the road to Jerusalem with his disciples. Soon, the crowd will be heaping palm branches and praises before him. But Jesus' thoughts aren't taken up with his own popularity. He knows that soon enough, this same gentle crowd will become an angry mob, shrieking, "Crucify him." He thinks instead about humbling himself to the point of death on the cross, about his triumphant resurrection, about his beloved disciples. Suddenly he stops, pulls the 12 aside, and tells them the events to come in graphic detail. Mark 10:32-34. He will be condemned to death, mocked, spit upon, scourged, killed. Then he will rise again. This is the future Jesus tries to prepare them for. However, James and John are interested only in the future advancement of their own power and glory. And James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him, saying to him, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." Verse 35. You can't help but shake your head and wonder at the brother's brashness. The selfish naivety of such requests is colossal. You would almost think that these were children speaking to their master, not grown men. But like a wise father, Jesus does not immediately give an answer to such an open-ended question. Instead, he draws out the raw ambition between James and John's requests. And he said to them, "What do you want me to do for you?" And they said to him, "Grant that we may sit in your glory, one on your right and one on your left." Verses 36 and 37. The sons of Zebedee were positioning themselves for power. They wanted greatness. They wanted to have a position of influence higher than any of the other disciples when Jesus established his kingdom in Jerusalem. But Jesus isn't going to that city to rule for a throne, but for a cross. So he tells them, "You do not know what you are asking for. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or to be baptized with the baptism with which I'm baptized?" Verse 38. The cup and the baptism are both symbolic references to the suffering that lay ahead for Jesus. Are you prepared to earn the glory you seek by first suffering shame, anguish, and even death? And they answered, "We're able." Verse 39. The presumption in the brother's flippant reply is incredible. You bet, no problem, count me in, we can handle it. Yet, not so many days later, in the Garden of Gethsemane, James and John quickly decided that being on either side of Jesus wasn't such a good idea after all, and they ran. Looking ahead, Jesus assures these boastful brothers that they will suffer for his sake, even to death. Jesus said to them, "The cup that I drink, you shall drink, and you shall be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized." Verse 39. For James, that would mean that he would become the first apostle to be martyred. Acts 12, verse 2. And for his brother John, it would mean that he would be the last apostle to die after years of persecution and exile. Even so, Christ explains that he cannot reserve them special seats in heaven, but to sit on my right or on my left, this is not mine to give, but it is for those who it has been prepared. Mark 10:40. Being promoted to a place of authority in God's kingdom is not a matter of knowing the right person or pulling the right strings. Prominence comes by appointment only, and God alone is the one who puts down one and exalts another. Psalm 75, verse 5-7. As you may expect, the other disciples figured out what James and John were up to, and their blood began to boil and bubble. And hearing this, the 10 began to feel indignant with James and John. Mark 10:41. In Greek, the word for indignant used here means to grieve much, annoyance, vexation. Peter, Matthew, Judas, all of them were irritated. Why? Well, look what happened a few days time earlier. And when they came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he began to question them. What were you discussing on the way? But they kept silent. For on the way, they had discussed with one another which of them was the greatest. Mark 9, verse 33-34. They had all envisioned themselves reigning with Jesus on either his left or his right. James and John were the first to come to ask Jesus about it. And with this self-righteous indignation, all the others glared at James and John. Jesus sensed the toil and trouble brewing between his disciples, and he knew why it was there. This isn't the road to Jerusalem that they were on. It is on the road of ambition. So he quickly pulls the 12 aside and gives them the instruction of how to achieve greatness this way. You know that those who are recognized as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great men exercise authority over them. Mark 10:42. So first of all, Jesus briefly reminds them of the chain of command that exists in the rank and file of everyday life. Every profession has its leaders, and they are present in the military, politics, business. It's just the way the system works. For his followers, however, Jesus has a different system in mind. But it is not so among you. But whosoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant. And whosoever wishes to be first among you shall be the slave of all. Verses 43-44. In Christ's church, the way up is down. Servanthood is what Jesus desires, not selfish ambition. Greatness comes from serving for the glory of God, not from being served for your own glory. The best example that ever lived was standing right there in front of them.
Subscribe to the Threads of Grace podcast, where testimonies transform lives. Subscribe, like, share, comment,